Okay, namaskaram. Welcome everybody. My name is Shreya Nagarajan Singh. I'm the founder of SNS Arts Development Consultancy. And on behalf of Dakshina Chitra, I would like to welcome all of you to day one of Utsavam, Dakshina Chitra's annual music and dance festival. This is the sixth year of the festival, and each year it sort of reincarnates itself into a new format with new themes and new audiences. This year we've envisioned the next 2 days with the theme of resilience in the arts through live and digital experiences. It's going to be a hybrid with online events, as many of you are here today, as well as with live performances at Dakshina Chitra, which is an ECR in Chennai. On the outset, I'd like to also acknowledge and give my deep gratitude and thanks to our partners, British Council, Goethe Institute, Alliance Française of Chennai, along with our sponsor, TVS Emerald, for partnering with us for Utsavam 2021. So today we'll be talking about resilience and really talking about the livelihoods and the future of the creative sector. But before that, I'd like to bring on Dr. Deborah Tyagarajan, who's actually been working on the idea of building the future, quite literally, through the museum. And I really think Dakshina Chitra is one of the top museums in India. And if you haven't been, I would highly encourage you when you come to Chennai next to do check it out. But before that, I'd like to request Dr. Deborah to please introduce the festival to our esteemed audience today.
Good morning to all of you on our networking panel for the Utsavam 6th edition at the Dakshina Chitra Museum. We're happy to have all the online panels today on audience development, innovation in the arts, and does money solve all your problems? What else do we need? We know that this has been a particularly difficult pandemic time for artists and cultural institutions. So we hope that we've turned the corner and that we'll have more live performance as well as more online programs in the coming year. We have a wonderful Yakshagana performance on Saturday afternoon at Dakshina Chitra. And on Sunday, the whole day, we have different workshops and performances throughout the houses. We have a wonderful lectem in the history of Yakshagana, Karnataka's most important performing arts. And we have a wonderful meme workshop by the king of Tamil memes, and reel in one of the houses for the youngsters, very popular on the internet channels. And we end the afternoon with an open mic where people can portray their creativity and their talents to a larger platform. We hope that you'll join us for many of these activities. Thank you. This is Debbie Tyagarajan, and
Thank you very much, Debbie, for that short message. And we really do admire everything that you've done and the legacy that you've left for the next generation through the museum. So before we delve into the first session, I would like to provide some context to our theme and set the stage of what to expect for the next 2 days. In a world of uncertainty, some things can still be predicted and foreseen, we believe, in today's world of emerging new markets, digital platforms. So much is changing at such a fast speed. And this past year, we've seen so much change and challenges, and the creative sector, no doubt, has been one of the hardest that has been hit. But this has also led to so many new trends, digital trends, blockchain, NFT, so many new venues for the creative sector to grow. So really keeping this in mind, we believe it is our duty as an organization to push artists and audiences to question the future and challenge the thought of artistic capabilities in order to shape a reality that makes the arts a viable option for the future. Right, so I come back to a recent program where futurist Nick Barker at a futures workshop was discussing how no one can actually really predict the future. But one thing we do know is that the future is plural and that there are many possible futures that could occur and parallel possibilities that could coexist in the same environment. So that's really what we're going to be talking over the next 2 days about, is really looking at the current trends, a little bit of prediction, whether it will be positive or negative, and really the ways and means we can build resilience in the creator sector through examples and case studies, because that's really what we need to be doing, is overcoming this pandemic together. So this year's Utsavam is really based on that idea of plurality. And over the next 2 days, we hopefully will acknowledge the past, analyze what's happening in the last year and at the present, and discuss the future. So join us as we discuss also our role in making the future inclusive, diverse, casteless, feminist, and environmentally sensitive. So with that, thank you so much. This is really the vision of the festival for the next 2 days. Thank you so much for listening to me. My name is Shreya, and I would love to now hand it over to our first session, which is strategies of audience development. This is a topic that I think has been on everybody's mind, and people have been addressing very seriously, especially considering the large number of digital audiences that has sort of been accessible over the last year. And so I would love to bring on here Mr. Bruno Plasse, who's the director of Alliance Française Chennai. Hello, Bruno. Thank you so much for partnering with us for this session and for being here today and moderating the session as well.
Thank you so much, Shreya. It's a real pleasure. So I'm very thankful to Utsavam, to the Dakshina Chitra Museum for organizing this session. So as you said, it focuses on the audience development. So our two panelists have agreed on sharing their experiences and strategy for audience development. So we are very glad that we can make a step with the collaborations between Museum of France and of India, because in the first, in this first panel to open this festival, we have Mrs. Agnès Parent. She's the Director of Public Division at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris, which was established in 1635. So it's a very old museum, one of the oldest in the world, actually. And she's in charge of setting up the main strategy axis of programming the exhibitions and the cultural actions. So definitely the questions of audience development, it's in the core of her scope. And she will share with us a lot of very interesting views. So I'd like to thank her very specially for one thing, is that it's 7:30 a.m. in Paris now, and she really agreed to join us in this very early morning panel. So thank you so much, Agnès, for that. I'd like to thank as well ICOM France. ICOM, it's the International Council of Museums, who actually help us in putting together the panelists, and it's important to mention. So the second panelist is Mr. Ganga Rautela. He's a physicist and a science communicator, advisor to the Department of Science and Technology Government of Uttarakhand. It's based in Dehradun. And he served in the board of a science museum in India. And both of them are real experts in science museum. And I'm very glad that they agreed to share their experiences and their view on this particular topic of audience development. So I'd like to hand over the stage to Agnès Parent. So thank you, Agnès, for being with us so early in the morning and for sharing your experience. Thank you. You are on mute, Agnès.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Bruno. Yes, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm Agnès Parent. Like Bruno said, I'm the Director of Public Division at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. First, I would like to thank Chitra and Bruno Plasse from l'Alliance Française for this invitation. I'm very happy to be with you today. And of course, Juliette Raoult-Duval, it's our president of ICOM France, for putting in touch with each other. So during my talk, I will present you our different strategy axes that we are putting in place to increase our audience and develop the range of our visitors. Perhaps you can put the PowerPoint. But first, allow me to present my institution and introduce myself a little more. You can move the PowerPoint, and so perhaps the next one. And for that, I propose you to watch a short video presenting the National Museum of Natural History you can play the video, please. Thank you. We can move the slide, please. So the National Museum of Natural History is distinguished by a unique synergy between its different funding activities, collections, research, expertise, knowledge dissemination, and education. Can move. It welcomes visitors to 11 of its 13 sites in Paris, but all around France. My direction is, as part of this group, is in charge of leading the strategy reflection to develop our practices and thus our audience. So logically, we are in charge of programming committee, which decides all the actions for public, like which exhibition, which event, which mediation. We are trying to be a force of proposal also to develop new projects. For example, we will soon be opening a new type of exhibition, Sensory Odyssey. You can see the picture on the right, which will offer visitors the chance to immerse themselves in the living world through very high definition images, smells, sounds, and interactivity. My department also deals with actions for the whole museum, like publishing, big events, like we have a science festival or the nature days, communication through digital contents, websites and social media, and touring exhibitions that we have developed a lot in the last years on the national and international territory. We have never yet worked with an Indian museum, but maybe one day, I hope. So on the question that was put to me, which strategy to increase one's audience, I would like to share with you some questions, orientations that I will illustrate with our approach. Visitors, their expectations, their composition, and museums are, I am well aware, quite different from one end to the other, at one end of the world to the other. Some of the questions we ask ourselves, some of the solutions we had tried to put in place may not resonate with your issues, but we will have the opportunity to discuss with Mr. Ganga after, and I'm sure it will be very interesting. First of all, when we talk about increasing the audience, which audience are we talking about? Today, museums are developing actions inside and outside their walls. For example, I will take the example of my museum. Our audience is composed of more than 3 million visitors paying a fee, 100,000 visitors of our libraries. You can move the slide. 30,000 people who participate in the free events, 320,000 visitors in our touring exhibitions, which is important for us, and more than 6.5 million visitors on the websites and more than 500,000 followers on social media. and nearly 5 million visitors and workers in the Jardin des Plantes, which is our traditional and historical site. So if you can move. The nature of visitor is also a point of attention for us. For this reason, we carry out survey studies, not enough in my opinion, to find out more about our visitors. For example, our school public represent only 7% of total of our visitors, which is less. For the individual audience, we know that is composed of, from geographical origin, on third from Paris, where the museum is, on third from suburbs of Paris, on third from the rest of France, and less than 10% of foreigners. That's a question. For the context of the visits, people are coming alone, 10%, between adults, 35%, and family, 55%. So families are the biggest groups of visitors. There's, of course, a difference between our sites. For example, we have more adults in Musée de l'Homme, which is a science and society museum, and more families in our zoos. So the visitor coming for the first time represented between 50 to 90%. That means that for some sites, we have a real royal audience that we need to keep. For the moment, our public is of a rather high social professional category. So study and the setting up of electronic guest books make it possible to know whether this public is rather very satisfied with its visit. 85% all sides combined. And more qualitative studies also allows us to know the motivations for the visit, why people come to see us. But I am not going to go in the detail because we don't have time. It's just to know that today in Europe, the expectation of the publics change a lot. And if we want to reach as many people as ever, we have to listen to these expectations. I don't know if it's the same here. We will have the opportunity to discuss after. So when you are a state-run organization like my museum, why do we want to expand our audience? That's a real question. What are your main goals? So for us, our main objective is obviously to make as many people as possible aware of our vast subject of natural history. Today, many of the themes in the public debate are closely related to our subjects: climate change, loss of biodiversity, relations between humans, relationships with nature, up to the pandemic that affects us today. We therefore have a real duty to inform citizens. This is why the museum is increasingly taking part in the public debate. So we also have to be careful with our ticketing revenue to continue to have a balanced budget, even though we are dependent on subsidies. So generally, significant revenue from an exhibition or major generating significant revenue from an exhibition or a major event allows us to finance other operations which we know will not be profitable for which on part, but it's part of our mission. For example, carrying out actions intended for disabled people or people who are very distant to the culture. So all of this is a question of balance. Furthermore, making the museum better known and making its voice heard also makes it easier to approach sponsors who support us and our actions. So the PowerPoint is going too fast, but I think you follow, it's okay. So by crossing our goals and our current audiences, we have set up a strategic plan to increase our audience in number, but also in diversity. through actions on our sites, but also outside our sites. So we worked on our offer to diversify it, and also on our communication and marketing actions. So you can move. For our visitors, so what we can do now? For our visitors, we need to build loyalty by renewed offer that corresponds to their expectations, by inform them through our newsletters and mailings via our new CRM, Customer Relationships Management. It's a very powerful tool for managing relationships and interactions with our visitors. We have collected like that a lot of contacts and continue to do so in compliance of course, the European Data Protection Act, which is very important in Europe. We also have changed our price list to favor annual subscriptions. So that is for our visitor. And what we can do for no visitors. So for them, we need to promote the museum and its message. For that, we want to propose a new offer, like I told before, to the public in our sites, but also to get further afield to meet new audiences, exhibitions throughout France and internationally. And for both our public and no visitors, we develop a frequent communication on website and social media, a stronger statement in the media, and of course, poster campaigns for Paris and its suburbs. And we are publishing around 20 books per year to spread naturalist culture for adults, for children. So, then we try to identify actions to be carried out by type of public. What can be done to bring them to our sites, but also to make them aware of natural history. So I will not have time to detail each group, but for example, for families, we want to propose, you can move the slide, please, thank you. We want to propose temporary exhibitions aimed more specifically for children. We want to develop educational activities for the very young, 2 to 6 years old. It's a very important expectation for families living in Paris, generally in small flats, and who want smart activities to do with their children. That's a really specific local subject. We also have a pass tribu, a cheaper entry tickets for family. And to move toward children, we will create digital contents. Another example, to draw in people further from the culture, we develop more popular exhibitions or events. For example, every year at Christmas, we organize a festival of lights, which has been a huge success, raising awareness of natural history and the fragility of biodiversity among a wide range of audiences, often less familiar with museums. That's kind of action that we want to develop, like more popular actions. We move towards people further from culture. We design special small exhibitions, touring exhibitions, and scientific and cultural mediation, able to reach so-called cultural deserts in France. For that, we always work with local partners. That is very important for us. And another last example, to drawing young adults between 18 to 25 years old, we need to develop special events in the evening often, like you can see in the picture. It's events in the Parc Zoologique de Paris at night. You can listen music through things. Or we can also develop events, but also special exhibitions, like immersive exhibition, like I told you before, Sensory Odyssey, or VR programs, etc. And of course, we need to have a strong communication on social media. To move towards these young adults, We use interaction, participation through social media. Of course, they are using that a lot. And we sometimes partner, we work sometimes with partners like influencers, like YouTubers and so on. So I don't have the time to detail our actions for all types of public, but we have taken the same approach for all. And you can move the slide, please. And now with the pandemic. In 2020, we were closed for 5 months, and we are still closed since the beginning of the year, with the hope to reopen perhaps maybe in May, June. The health situation in France is not good at the moment, so I will skip the details of cancellations, postponements of exhibitions or events in the overall uncertainty of the evolution of the situation. So it's not easy. But how to keep in touch with our visitors? At the beginning of the last year, during our first lockdown, we were not prepared, like many museums. But little by little, we have imagined and developed actions to keep in touch with our public. Like many museums, I think, nationally and internationally, we have created content on social media and websites and tested a lot of things. Last year, for example, we published over 4,000 posts on social media, seen by more than 70 million people, creating more than 100 dedicated pages on our websites and produce more than 3,000 photos and 200 is enough, 200 videos, what is important, our most successful video. We develop different subjects, videos and podcasts to highlight issues such as pandemic and biodiversity, online educational activities, especially for when schools were closed. It was at the beginning. Now they are reopened, but perhaps I will close it again. A series on our behind the scenes activities, our jobs, our scientific expeditions. I know the audience like that kind of subject, to see what is behind our walls. And today we are mainly developing online mediation, live and record conferences, video capsules with mediators to present the collections, online workshops and meetings, and we will develop soon online visits for schools. So, in conclusion, this, you can move the slide, please. This very special period has changed us a lot and modify our working habits, our way of thinking about our jobs and our missions. At the museum, more regular collaborations between departments has been set up, especially in communication, marketing, digital contents, and mediation. And today we see the importance for museums to reach out their audiences, especially through digital content, a medium that is becoming essential for museums. But this should not overshadow our core mission, which is, for me and for a lot of people, I think, is to enable a real encounter between visitors of all ages and the heritage that we house. And we hope that the health situation will soon allow us to reopen our doors. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Agnès, for this presentation. Actually, I'm from Paris. I was born in Paris, and visits to the National Museum of Natural History has always been something important in my life. So I'm so happy to see those pictures, and so happy to discover as well all the work that has been done for the audience development and all what you and your department are doing in order to adjust to the pandemic. And even with the story of the museum to develop pre-pandemic, all the audience. So now that we have we had your presentation, I'd like to call on the stage Mr. Ganga Rautela, who is going to tell us about the situation in India. And after his presentation, we will have some time to discuss and to maybe go cross-culture with the two situations. So Mr. Ganga Rautela, the floor is yours.
And thank you, Anna, for your wonderful presentation. I would like to make a small presentation before we go into some discussion. That is it's a general nature. I'm not taking any specific museum example, but I would at the end cite few examples of audience development that has been undertaken by some museums in India. Next slide, please. Can you? What do you mean by audience development? It is a strategic, dynamic, and interactive process of making art and culture, or even science, both tangible and intangible, widely accessible to public. It aims at engaging individuals and communities in experiencing, enjoying, participating, and valuing the art and culture and science through various communication means available for cultural operators. From museums to digital tools to volunteering, from co-creation and partnerships. It is a process rather than an approach. It is a strategy to reaching and sustaining existing audience and building new audience through marketing, through programming, through communication, through education and cooperation based on visitor data, that data you collect from the audiences who are coming and who are not coming. The next please. What are the issues in audience development? To me, first of all, each museum or a cultural institution has to have its own audience development policy and a plan and the strategy to implement that plan. And what do you mean by audience development policy, which will decide on whom are you going to include into your audience base? How many of them you would like to have them? When you would like to bring them? And can you, that is necessary because you need to look at your infrastructure, you look at your resources. And so then you plan the whole process and apply a strategy to implement that process. So for that, all that you can plan and make a strategy only when you have an audience research. You understand your audience. Understanding audience means knowing their aspirations, knowing who are they, from where they come, what is their age group, what is their economic background, how did they come, how did they know about the museum, and what do they expect from the museum, and are they satisfied? All unless you have this data with you, you can't make a good policy or a good plan or a good strategy. So that is must. As you probably, there is a data saying about 65% audience of the museum comes by word of mouth, means knowing from others, not through the media, not through other. They are there, but in a smaller percentage. And audience development issue also involves attracting, means the first timers, and retaining who have come once and they would like to, you would have to bring them again. So you need a different strategy for that. And bringing the lost visitors. Now this has become very important when you have Corona or COVID-19 making museums close for a long time. So you have lost a lot of your visitors. How do you bring them back? So it means you need to compete for repeat audience. Apart from going vertical growth in your audience, you need to have an audience, inclusive audience base, means involving whole community or community groups in your city or in your town, wherever you exist. So you increase audience that way. And also develop audience loyalty. So once the museum audience comes to, or public comes to you, how do you make them loyal to you? How that happens when you make them satisfied, or they get a return on their investment and a return on their time investment or whatever it is. And then you have to have a communication strategy suitable for various segments. Now one strategy doesn't work for one segment of society and other segment of society as well, but you need to have different strategies and marketing strategy for different segments of the society. And cultural basis also plays an important role in audience development, because it varies from culture to culture. How do you really bring them and develop them as audiences? So you also need a very good team or trained team or qualified team to develop audience. Now, especially in India, I would like to cite that our Indian museums do not recognize marketing as one of the core activities of the museum, and we don't have marketing team in museums many places, except few of them have introduced, and so that is needs to be considered. And how do you now use the digital media into audience development? Now, when you develop a policy, what does the policy include? The goal of audience development. Why do you want to bring them? What for you want to bring them? And then you need the target. What is the target you are setting in for yourself? For vertical mean the number, and the horizontal mean being inclusive. And then, are you ready with resources? Can you match the inflow or the crowd that would come to you? And then how do you plan that? Then what is the marketing strategy after you have developed your development policy? You have developed your policy. And you also have to be very clear on handling diverse and conflicting needs. From visitor data, you would need the aspirations and expectations of museums from the data that you have. And some of them may have conflicting needs. How do you handle that? That's what you need to be part of the policy. Deciding on scope of facilities and expansion, how much you can expand depending on limitations of your infrastructure. Then how to handle needs of repeat audience. Repeat audience doesn't come to see the same thing again. They need some changes, as Anne has just told, that new inclusions, new additions, new modifications, and that only would bring the repeat visitors or the repeat audiences. And are you ready for handling the large audiences and to remove the barriers that they would encounter when they come to your museum? So you have to be ready. That has to be part of the policy formulation. So, and your policy must be clear, measurable, and achievable. And the plan accordingly, you should be prepared so that you know whether you are succeeding and whether it's going to be counterproductive or has become counterproductive. So that's when necessary. And can I go to the next slide, please? So then you develop your strategy for audience development. So as I told in the beginning, that you need to have data in hand. You must be knowing who has come, who has not come, and who has come, how did they come, what do they expect, what is their age group, what are their languages they know. Whether I know in India especially, it's a very serious problem for museums to put labels on the exhibits because we have multilingual society, and we have large tourists going to all over the country now. And if you are only catering to two languages policy that many museums have, that is English and the local language, that goes against the wish of or aspiration of the visitors coming outside that particular zone. So how do you handle? Some of the museums have now introduced touchpads to give them multiple options of the languages so that they can be satisfied. And you have to have accordingly visitor-centered approach so that visitor is satisfied. And you need to develop your marketing strategy to go. I would talk about some of the strategies that coming in the next slides. And develop museum as an experience destination. Today, museum is not only mere visit to see artifacts. It's an experience. I give an example of what do you mean by experience. Suppose you have an art gallery, and can you add on to the end of the gallery some dirtying your hand experience? They do their own paintings and make some art pieces, and that's an experience you can provide along with your art gallery, so that goes along with them, that remains with them all the time. Evolve networking with other museums of the country as well as abroad. This is necessary. For example, you have certain artifacts or collections on one aspect, and complementary objects are with some other museum. So to curate a whole exhibition on that particular theme, you need collaboration. So whether it's India or abroad, so that would bring help you. So that can help you from time to time to build new exhibits, new exhibitions. And so you have to develop new exhibition from time to time to keep your visitors and repeat visitors on, and you organize events, activities, or renovate the existing ones to add on new things to your existing facilities. And you have to adopt technology to be immersive. Remember, today's visitors are very tech friendly, especially the young visitors. You need to adopt technology to give them good experience, immersive experiences, and whether it's augmented reality or virtual reality or immersive, any other experience that they have. Now that can help you to make visitors interested or get an immersive environment inside the museum. Can I go to the next slides? So, and you need to organize blockbuster temporary exhibition from time, which will bring back the visitors, and your brand, your name in the society, in the media remains on all the time. So this is required to renew your brand, to renew your audience facility. Ethnic days, for example, this is a very interesting example in India. In a particular city, large city like Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, Bangalore, or Chennai, you have various community groups from all parts of the country, and they normally live in pockets around. And how do you get them to the museum? So we devise a method that on their particular festival, for example, if it is Kerala, whether on Kerala community in a city like Delhi, how do you organize a Onam festival in your museum, so that and that day your cafeteria serves the Kerala food, has Kerala active events, there are cultural events in the museum, and you have special exhibition on Kerala and some activities and lectures, etc. So you have a whole day for them. So that is how you can create your loyalty for visitors or with the ethnic group visitors in the city. And you can, if you have large visitors, you can also extend your opening hours. So your brand has to be enhanced and then by various activities, marketing activities, media presence, and digital marketing has become essential today. That is required to be done, and develop pricing structure to suit various audiences. You may like to offer incentives or some, for example, buy one and one free, and with the family, to one more ticket is free or next visit is free, whatever you. That's also sometimes brings back visitors, and involves celebrities and influencers who go back to the community and talk about your museum. So you have a brand name. Next, please. And digital media, people in this particular Corona period have to organize various activities, which I would like to list here. Webinars for professionals, lectures for general public, past performance videos on YouTube, hands-on workshops for students remotely done in the museum and students doing at home, virtual visit to museum galleries and specially curated exhibitions, co-creation of exhibitions by various groups, online participation, live performances and demonstration available online through museums, quizzes, painting contests, and other activities. A lot of activities museums organize to remain live, so that people don't really forget you. And I would like to have another concept called citizen culture. That means you share your culture on a particular website or a particular group, and so each one of participant or member posts their cultural special activity which are not elsewhere, so that this can enhance the cultural sensitivity in the society, so that we are aware of the country's rich cultural heritage. And you organize live shows and interactions on net. Okay, next please. Can I go to the next slide? So I would like to quickly go to some case studies. One of them is virtual exhibitions, which I talked about, that some museums have done single exhibit tours and some group exhibits. And you organize special programs for senior citizens in museums. For example, I give an example. Senior citizens are not that tech savvy, and they have barriers in using technology. When especially the computers came, I brought this example because when we introduced computerized in presentation in our museums, we organized special training programs for senior citizens. That brought the senior citizens in, and they became very happy because they could operate internet and communicate with their kids outside. And when they came to the museum, they thought, oh, it's a wonderful place. Why I not bring my grandchildren? So many of them came back with their grandchildren. That's how you can build a new audience base. Similarly, was homemakers. We did special programs. They brought their families back. We organized ethnic days and special days for tour operators. For example, you see a picture down there where tour auto rickshaws were given free entry on a particular day, and they became our messengers when they go back, because passengers do hire them in the city and they talk about your museum to them. And so they become messengers, and they agree to put our poster in their rickshaw. And that is the way we organize. And there were taxi drivers days, special days, and we organize flower shows. And reaching the unreached. How do you reach? For example, I give an example of a Science City, Kolkata. In 2006, the Science City started receiving low visitors. 1.8 million to it had come down to 1.2 million per year. And then there was a special, because Science City is a self-sufficient institution, it needs to earn its own money to survive. So we had to do some kind of, so we did a survey in the community outside Calcutta and within Calcutta in railway stations, and that data gave us a lot of good feedback. For example, one feedback was the Science City is expensive. That was the feedback came from remote outskirts of Calcutta. And that surprised us, because you could see Science City only ₹50 in that time. And but you have special tickets for IMAX theater and others. But then we started advertising in small newspapers in the outskirts, which was very inexpensive advertisement. And you won't believe, within 1 year, we increased the audience by 150,000. So that small interventions and the data help us to devise this marketing strategy. We organized animal shows for animal lovers, and that brought another group of visitors. So you have art and craft demonstrations. You bring them into the master craftsmen to the museums and organize their demonstration of their craft. So you get a lot of audience, different audience to see this. And then you organize cultural events from time to time. That renews the interest. Of course, that is when you are your museum is on to the public. So you could have number of other events organized. So now next is you need a team to plan out and to do your audience development activity. So you need a dedicated team as a marketing team or PR team. But if you don't have it, especially the situation in India doesn't support to have a separate team, because you can't employ too many people. So I would be always advocating multitasking, training some people who are good at PR and marketing, training them in audience development, and taking their services for this purpose. This has worked in the Science Museum arena, because we don't have special marketing staff at all in any of our science centers. But because of training of the staff from time to time, we have been able to enhance our audience. Today, all science museums together receive about 15 million visitors in a year. That happened because of constant marketing activity and renewal of its services and activities and facilities from to time. And marketing and PR and audience development is not single responsibility of one person, but whole museum has to be got into involvement into this, because everybody's services, everybody's involvement is necessary for this. And then you have to allocate certain fund resources and the budget for the audience development activity. So to me, key points to take from this audience development is you must have audience research as your regular activity to know your audience, number one. Number two, then devise a methodology for marketing and for brand making as well as audience development. That would really enhance your audience. And satisfy your visitors. Whenever they come, you must satisfy them so that they become your messenger. A word of mouth is faster than any other medium for that matter for museums. That's what I would like to emphasize. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ganga Rautela, for this very enlightening presentation and all the information that we got. So we had one presentation focusing on one museum, the one in Paris for the Natural History Museum, and your presentation over there, but many points were very online, actually. And this, I think the most important one is about the strategy that is needed to build an audience. So amongst the questions, so maybe we can check with both of you, how do you make the evaluation of the strategy? So when can you say that the audience strategy is successful or has to be readjusted? So Agnès, maybe?
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy for the presentation to listen your presentation, Mr. Ganga, because I think our goals are a way to see how to increase audience are really similar. So it's very interesting. So to answer the question, it's not easy. It depends if you want quantitative. If you Okay, you can say my strategy worked a lot because when we did, for example, the Festival des Lumières, a Festival of Lights, we had so many people. It was completely crazy, you know, that there was so big people making queue near our museum. So for us, it was a huge success. Okay, we developed that action to have different audiences. So how to know people coming, where they are coming, if they are different from for our natural audience, if I can say that. So we did a survey because it was at night. We did a survey, and we saw that okay, our goal was okay. That we really have a different audience coming for that event. So little by little, you have you can have informations like that, but it's not easy. You need to of course, there's the question of quantity, but there's a question of quality, you know. So quality studies and the quantitative studies. I don't know if it's the right word, if you understand.
Okay, yes, I think it's nice. So maybe Mr. Ganga, you can tell us about how to evaluate the strategy, the audience development strategy from your side. Is that the same things with the 2 points that Agnès just developed?
Can you be a little louder? I am not able to get your voice, Bruno.
Okay, I'm so sorry for that. So can you hear me better now? Hello?
Can you please type that? Shreya.
Okay, so let's.
I think it's low. Can you repeat this?
Yes, so the question was, is it the same for you? So Agnès developed the fact that the strategy can be assessed with the quantity and the quality of the strategy. So how is it from your point of view?
Audience development strategy, as I told you, because in India, we hardly have marketing personnel in museums. And we don't have even PR persons in museums, except few of them, the new ones that have come in. So the strategy is almost would be same after competing. And the biggest problem is competing for the audience time. How do you devise a strategy that you make them museum goers rather than they go to other amusement parks or other facility in the city? So the strategy to bring the increase your audience is based on the data if you have collected, because a lot of museums don't do it that in India. Let me frankly tell you that, because I don't come across good publications on visitor research in India. Except we have in Science Museum, we have every 3 months, you must track 1,000 visitors. That is the kind of a strategy we have. So you must survey 1,000 visitors in 3 months. So that data all over the country gives us a lot of feedback. And so based on that, we do organize, change our exhibits, organize traveling exhibitions, and lot of events. We do a lot of events in museums. That's what brings us new visitors, and as well as repeat, as well as new visitors.
Okay, so maybe another question relating to the pandemic situation. So does the impact of the pandemic is more on the mediation or on the concept of a new exhibition or any event? So how do you in what field does the pandemic has the most the biggest impact? Is that on the mediation or on the creation?
You want to answer or I start, Mr. Ganga? I can start if you want. It's okay, Bruno. I will say it depends on the situation of the museum, the way to manage the teams and things like that first. But both. For my museum, for example, is both. I think in France it's the both. Like there's two questions. For the mediation, we develop online mediation, you know, and for example, we are developing mediation for school, B2B, you know, one school, one mediator. And because we are in Paris and France is a big country, not as big as you, of course, but in India, but we think that we will keep that option for schools far from our museums, for example. So it changed the way to do mediation. Second, what I said is that it's strange. Everybody was at home working, but the lockdown changed the way of working together, you know, from the team of mediation, from the public department to the content digital department and so on. So I think that's a really good thing, like to work together to find solutions in that case. And for creation, of course, because two things, because we have time, I think people and in museum developed different kind of projects. You know, they have more time to imagine things and so on. So it was good. And second, because of the problem of touching things, real interactivity, and because of the pandemic, we have to imagine another way to interact, to develop interactivity in the museums. So that's another point, if I can answer.
So, Mr. Ganga, is the impact of the pandemic more on mediation? You are on mute. We can't hear you. You are on mute.
Would unload. Oh, sorry. The tour operator would unload them at the gate of the museum and give them a time schedule of 40 minutes. You have to back to the bus. So this is a number which we really sometimes go for, because of that brings revenue. The second, quality visitation is not even schools. Schools also, some of the schools come planned, they have planned visits, they have worksheets in hand, they really get a quality visit to the museum. But some of them, they just call it the school picnic. They come in to the museum and make a whole round of the museum galleries and go out. That also, but let me tell you, the parents and the families who come, and that is a large number now in India. It's about 65% visitors are families. So that's a big number. And that they come, they spend considerable time. They have a day out. They stay. They use your cafeteria and all the events and activity, and they spend really quality time. So I would say 70 or 75% is a quality visitor, and 25% is a quantity visitor. So that's how I would put it that way. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe another question. You mentioned about the importance of having some blockbuster exhibition or events. So maybe can you share with us, both of you, some examples of very successful event that really brings back the museum to the light?
Blockbuster events, yes, that is necessary for your brand and also necessary for bringing good revenue. And I give you an example of in 1997. It's a quite old example. When the Jurassic Park exhibition film came on television, or it was a public show, we thought of an innovative idea of doing a dinosaur exhibition. And 35 species of dinosaurs were built, robotic dinosaurs. And that we had, you won't believe, in 40 days, we had to close down the exhibition because we couldn't cater to the large crowd that was visiting. And the whole exhibition recovered its cost in 30 days, the money that we spent on it. So you get a crowd of, in 40 days, about 300,000 visitors in 40 days. That's a huge crowd. So these blockbuster exhibitions, similarly, we did on robotic insects, giant from your backyard, you call them. And those exhibitions brought a different kind of family group who had small kids, wanted to see those insects. Not the tourists, not the other adults, but it was very popular among kids. So we could renew our audience base, and we could ensure that that these visitors keep on coming to the museum from time to time. So blockbuster exhibition are, for me, it is for marketing and brand renewal.
If you want to realize a blockbuster in the Natural History Museum, you just say dinosaurs. But we will not do only exhibition about dinosaur. One of our success was, you saw the picture in my presentation, it was an exhibition about T-Rex, and we presented a real original one from Leiden. It's another country in Europe, another town in Europe. And it was a huge success also. And like I told you, Le Festival des Lumières was also a very, very good success. So I think the subject is very important, of course. In France, if you want to people coming in your museum, it's two subjects, dinosaurs for Natural History Museum and Egypt, for example, for Society Museum. Like it's like Van Gogh and for example, for art is the same. So, but you need to develop different things, not only the same subject. And I think the way of present things like original way, like Festival des Lumières, or the new exhibition that we will open. It's an immersive exhibition with nice quality images, interactions, smells, and so on. So I think the way of presenting our subject also, it's a good way to realize blockbuster. So you can play on both subject and the type of the originality of the proposition.
So maybe in line with this answer, is there any links between the entertainment that the museum has to carry on and the scientific contents that you are supposed to bring to the audience?
We are not school. We are not a formal education place. It's in France we said informal education. So no. So our goal is to change a little bit the way to see the world, the way to see for us, for example, the nature. Not, I think, to really learn things, names, and so on, so on. That's the objective of schools, you know. So you need to find solution between entertainment, a mix between and scientific contents, but because we are also a place for research, you know, we have like you saw in the video, like 400 researchers in our wall. You know, it's very important for us. So you can realize funny things, but always with strong science contents behind.
Can I just add, I think you asked me a question about the successful events. The cultural and science festivals have been very successful in our museums here in India. And another, you asked scientific content versus entertainment. Yes, we do have entertainment incorporated in the galleries in some area of the museum. That is, unless you entertain visitors, they are not going to spend time. So today, visitors, if you go for the study visitor data, they also seek enjoyment in museum apart from learning. So we need to give small. So I call this sugar coating science with entertainment. So we need to do that. Otherwise, science goes above the head for a lot of visitors. So we need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can take some of the questions which has been posted on our YouTube. So there is one question relating to strategy, how to make strategies on incorporating viewing platforms for online events in the business model, considering the current scenario. So who wants to go for that?
Perhaps Mr. Ganga, you start? It's a difficult question to answer.
So how can you incorporate the platforms, the online events, in a business plan? Because you don't make money from that, but it brings some audience. So how would you do that?
I don't. Yeah. Okay, Bruno, you're going.
Please,
okay. This question of incorporating viewing platforms, online events on a business model of a museum, I don't think it has matured yet enough in conditions. And what are the activities you will be paid and which bring you revenue? And that needs to be a lot of work to be done. And except for certain museums have made their paintings downloadable on payment, and some replicable items which they can download as a visual on payment through online payments. I don't think any other thing that has happened so far in India.
But has it to be considered as a marketing investment, and that the online, which does not generate money, should it be considered as an investment for the museum, for the communication and marketing? And yes, maybe we are mute.
We spoke a lot with our colleagues in France, for all the museum about that question. How to? I really agree with Mr. Ganga about its brand awareness. So it's for example, in communication, we spent a lot of money for a campaign on the metro in Paris. It cost a lot of money, you know. But so I think we need to now to use that money that we traditionally use for traditional media to put on the website, social media, and so on. Why? Because it's a very good way to develop the brand of the museum and so on. A good way to develop to like that people know you, who you are, what you are doing, and so on. And second hand, you really develop contents about your subject, so that is also important. So you can do the both like that. And for special activities like workshop online and so on, we asked ourselves if we need ask for some fees or things like that for the people. We didn't start at the moment, but for example, for schools, when for online, for example, visits on schools, we will develop this. It will be the same price online and in the museum, in real life, I can say. So there's a lot of debate around that. You know, it's not easy for individual publics. It's very difficult to make them pay for online activities, but for special like school groups, it could be possible.
Mr. Ganga, do you want to add something on this topic? No. So maybe another question, which is relating on the quality of the visits actually. So do you think that the online versus the real life visit has an impact on the quality of the visits for the viewers, the museum goers?
It's not the same at all.
So what's the difference?
To see in real life, you know, like collections, to feel, to smell, you can touch, of course, not all of them, but to have a real contact with collections. But of course, virtual visit can help you to have more contents, to see more deeper and things like that. So it's two ways to imagine things. But like I said, we are museums, and what is important is people really meet our collections, have connections, physical connections with collections. But sometimes it's impossible. For example, we are closed at the moment, so you can imagine another way to make that link between visitors and collection, between visitors and contents, between visitors and natural history, and so on for us. And so, of course, you can use that kind of tools like virtual visits and so on, but it will never be the same like in real life, I think.
Yeah, I think museums are for real objects and real things. So, well, if you are compelled to go online because of corona-like situation, well, you have no option but to present few things to keep your audience level alive. But I would say it's a physical. Museums cannot be totally virtual. You could use digital media tools for promotion and for renewal of interest of visitors, but you cannot replace museums by virtual presentation. That's what is my view.
Okay, so I think that definitely the impact was very important for all the activities. So let's say about the Alliance Française, so we are a cultural center and a school of language. Definitely the audience has changed. So it means that within the impact, we had the possibilities of touching some audience who would not come physically to the Alliance Française. India is a very big country, so the distance are very big. And so having our course online makes it more accessible to a part of the audience. So I guess that in the museum, it's the same. So especially in India, with the distance, I think that all the museums who are more accessible online now are accessible to a more larger potential audience than before, isn't it? So I'm sorry that I'm not. You are mute, Agnès.
France is smaller, but yeah, it's a real reality. Like that, you can, for example, for schools or for people far from our museum, of course, with digital contents, you can go to that audience. But also, like I said, we need to make real things for cultural desert also in France, to go there physically also. You just can say we put things online so like that everybody can have the contents. No, you need to also to realize specific physical exhibitions or mediation outside your wall. We try to develop that more and more, and to have contact with the public far from culture, you know. So
Yes.
of course, digital contents help, but real life, real actions, meet people and so on. It's a good way to develop the knowledge of culture, of natural history, of science, subject, society, and so on.
I think a question to that is very convenient to be online because you can see from any part of the world and without going to the museum. That's true. But I think museums also need audience for their survival, both in terms of revenue. Less they come in and have a gate collection, the museum would cease to exist maybe after some time. But I would also advocate that we need also to use the digital communication technology for reaching out to larger audience who cannot visit to the museum. That is okay. But I think I would put that maybe about 20% and 80% is a physical visit to the museum. That's what the strategy will help the museums going. Otherwise, yes, yeah. If you have only virtual exhibition, your money collection need not to be done. You need not to go to the field visits. You need not to display, and you can only photograph the objects and put in the whatever platform you like to put. But I think this can only be used to enhance the museum presentation, enhance the museum mission, but not replace the museums. That's what I think.
Great. So I think that the time is over, so we have to conclude. So I want really to thank both of you for your two presentations and the very interesting interaction that you had. Maybe I can call Shreya back on the stage in order to give a word of thanks and maybe a presentation of the coming events for today. Shreya?
Thank you very much. That was such a fascinating panel and so many fantastic points, I think, especially from the Indian context and the French context. I think what I've really learned is that we have more problems and challenges in similar contexts, though the countries are so different and our processes are so different. Actually, the challenges still remain the same, which is interesting because we have completely different models of how we look at statistics, what statistics we have in our hands, in India at least. So lots to take by, and I'm going to have to watch this a few more times for me to really internalize it, and I'm sure the same is for our audience as well. On behalf of Dakshina, Chitra, and SNS, I'd love to thank all of you. Thank you, Mr. Ganga. Thank you, Agnès. Thank you so much, Bruno, for partnering with us and for moderating this session. Really means a lot. I'd also like to have a quick shout out to Ashik, who has been our tech person. Thank you so much, Ashik, for the smooth transitions, for Ajay, for the fantastic creators, for the entire Dakshina, Chitra, and SNS team who worked very hard to put this together. So thank you so much to everybody. Our next panel is, yes, thanks. Our next panel is about innovation in the arts and how that's going to lead the way forward. So we're going to be starting that in exactly 15 minutes. So thank you all very much and see you there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.